And we're live. No roll up here or no roll in here. Happy Friday, everybody. Uh, it's Friday. It's noon here in California, and as in last week, I have Jason Kitamura joining. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I you know, really liking that background again. Yeah, next time maybe you can join us from the Sahara or something like that. But I'm liking the vibes there in the background. Maybe you should decorate like that as we start to lay out the office.
I'll put in the request. That's for sure.
Nice, nice. Well, hey, rolling into this week's weekly roll up, we had a couple different topics that I know we were going to discuss, but then there was some late breaking news yesterday come about, and we were looking into it. I think it was on Marijuana Moment, and we were going to kind of dive into the federal legalization talk and get onto that. So, it boils down to what do you think? What's top of mind and what's old hat? What are we talking about here, Jason?
Well, there's a couple stories. First off, there's the bill that got passed. So I'll read this tweet. It's from Senator Dianne Feinstein. Just in, the Senate passed my bill with Senators Grassley and Schatz to cut red tape around the research process of marijuana and marijuana-derived medications. This will help get FDA-approved marijuana-derived medications safely to patients. So I guess that's a step. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a step and it's a hat in the ring. I would say that what they're doing is lending support, right? And again, it's a momentum thing. Um, this is the important legislation will help cut red tape around the research process. That is that's one of the biggest things about this is ultimately getting to the next point where we can take this plant that we love so much and take what we all know or feel antidotally about it, right? Because we know what happens to us, right? And we know how it works for us in our certain ways when medicating or when using recreationally or whatnot. But when it comes down to medicine itself, is truth be told, we need research and we need the studies on it for it to be safe for people in mass, and that's what's been lacking, right? That's where all the medical evidence on a federal level when coming down to federal court cases, all that kind of stuff has been refutable because you can use the word or term medical marijuana. Uh, Boils down to the fact that this is going to be the first step towards getting past that. It's a big step. It's a big step.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, what we've always been saying about needing some doctors to come forward and, legitimize the efficacy of cannabis for everybody to adopt it and, federally legalize it. And it kind of seems like it's all preemptive to kind of go on to, I guess the other story we're talking about is how the MORE Act is going onto the floor again. Um, what is it, Thursday?
Right.
Um, and we did have that other story that we're talking about the bipartisan politicians asking Biden to, try to take it off the restricted uh, drug list for
Right.
international lists. So it kind of seems like, I mean, hopefully, I know this has been going on for a long time, but it seems like everything's kind of coming into place, like they're preempting, more talks on legalization. Basically, it's kind of like, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Like, if it's legalized, basically, the first thing that they want to do is show that it's going to be thoroughly examined and thoroughly studied, and which is what this bill passed. They want to make sure that they're not going to be cut off from all the rest of the world because it's illegal substance. And then, that's kind of like the next thing. So it seems like it's all gearing up for something big. I mean, do you kind of have that feeling as well?
No, absolutely. But again, we're reaching these midterm elections. It's the 2022 elections coming up. There's a lot of posturing happening as well. So when we're talking about these other steps happening, these are firsts in categories as opposed to the MORE Act being the umpteenth time that it's been passed, and really is it going to do anything? I know right now it's making the stocks go crazy, cannabis stocks go crazy, and they're jumping. I was listening to a couple people in the morning as far as that went market wise, but boils down to it, is it voter manipulation? Not, and I don't mean manipulation in a way that is supposed to get us red flagged here on on YouTube. I
Be
mean,
careful.
is it yeah? Is it basically, just more propaganda, right? And hey, I wanted to take a second here because and note that right now we are live on YouTube and we've got the comments going on the YouTube live here as well. But we did post this to our Trichomes app, the Trichomes Community app. We've got a couple comments going there, and I wanted to throw a shout out to Frosty Tips 92 and Cultivating Better Days Hemp Farm for joining the conversation over there on our app. We'll be talking and making this more of a discussion, and I'm really excited about having both the comment sections going from both YouTube and our app. So as we get into this, the first question up, and Frosty Tips said, "Happy Friday." I'm super stoked you're watching too. But Cultivating Better Days, what are your thoughts on the government patent on cannabis for medical uses, denying one's fundamental human rights to health due to our geographic location, state political views, or is unconstitutional and extremely negligent and abusive? My alcohol neuropathy and farm really were surprised to find out. My alcohol neuropathy and farm were really surprised to find out. Wisconsin is like a war zone. I'm a hemp farmer, and we are out until legislation changes. No need to be gunned down in our home for farming hemp. And it's, I mean, the gist of your comment is it's still an outright atrocity what's happening here, right? It's what's going on with the gray area created by the Farm Bill Act happening with hemp, and the states, still thinking they have rights to legalize or excuse me, regulate things in certain ways outside of what the federal is. It really leaves a questionable and scary gray area for a lot of people. Coming out of the illicit market and having done this my whole life, the transition here in California went from, well, hey, we were outright illegal. I graduated from high school, the medical law passed here in California, but still there weren't any legal dispensaries. Everything was getting shut down, shut rated, all that kind of thing. When it comes down to 2009, 2010, all of a sudden we've got books of patients. We're working within plant counts. We're making sure not to hit any federal violations and that kind of thing. But still, on a bad day, they could kick in your door and take you to jail. Up until just recently in California, right? It's like PTSD for the people going through that right now. They're going through that time period where it's like, well, am I right or am I wrong? As per our country, as per our federal standards and that kind of thing. So when it boils down to it, I think Cultivating Better Days for Hemp, it stinks that you're going through that process. Like you said, it kind of makes the whole process one big entrapment scheme, and it does feel like that at sometimes. It really does feel like that at sometimes, because on one hand, you got a lot of people out here saying you can do it, and it's in the news, and there's investments happening in it, and there's all that kind of stuff, and then it's literally still illegal in certain places and states.
That's pretty crazy. Let me ask you, knowing your background,
Yeah.
what do you think? I know we asked this a couple times, but I just want to have everybody kind of listen in on your take on what you think will happen to the market as far as the cannabis market, businesses, from the consumer side to the business side. What's going to happen if it does get legalized compared to right now? What do you think the biggest changes are going to be?
Well, legalized, federal legalization,
federally legalized.
Well, ultimately, I guess it's going to, alcohol is probably a pretty good indication of what could happen with it. There's still states, that regulate alcohol within distribution and sales and that kind of stuff. And then there's places like as in Texas, they're probably going to regulate things and allow counties to opt out. There's still dry counties all over the place and that kind of thing. So, realistically, the adoption thereof of cannabis is going to be probably still on a state by state level without federal repercussions happening. And then really what happens next is interstate commerce. So it boils down to, it's going to become like most other commodities. It's going to be grown in the best places to grow it. You're going to have competing marketplaces. Ultimately, I see the price regulation happening for the consumer more at that point. I mean, as far as I can remember, an eighth has been an eighth has been an eighth, for so long. And nowadays you can get some mids or whatnot for, $40 an eighth or whatnot. But realistically, at the store, you're still paying prices from 2000, 1990, $60 an eighth plus tax. That, really here in California, that's because of the taxes. It's not because of inflation or anything else. Long and the short is legalization looks like it does for most other things. It becomes uniformly, products become more uniform. You have brands that can go national with it. You have much more valuable brands in cannabis now. But realistically, the value goes out of it for the farmers, and now it becomes a game of brands and retail, whatever that looks like within federal legalization. Does it stay a dispensary model, or does it become where you can walk into the 7-Eleven and grab yourself, instead of a pack of Swishers, a pack of joints, or a pack of blunts in Swishers, right? So I don't know. There's a lot that actually happens with it, but the biggest part of that is that people aren't in trouble anymore. And just like we're talking about with cultivating better days for hemp, is the biggest part is that the narrative surrounding it, the misnomer surrounding it, the feeling bad for consuming it surrounding it, becomes less and less every single day from that point forward. And that's a big part of it. And nobody's going to prison for it, opposite of the things that are public endangerment issues and that kind of stuff, which have to do with alcohol and other consumptions and basic human rights, not bursting other people's bubbles, basically. What do you think happens with it?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it does seem like they're on a little bit more aggressive path these days. I know a lot of this stuff kind of happened after, I guess Democrats had a meeting a couple weeks ago that was, closed off meeting. And I guess a lot of the discussion was focused on the cannabis industry and what to do. And then, just looking at the economy and things like that, I mean, look how much debt we're in, the gas prices, all that stuff. It's a viable revenue stream for the country. And I think they're starting to, even though they have their own personal ideas about it, bottom line is, money is what moves things. If they see a financial opportunity, it's going to overtake a lot of the people's independent ideas about it. And I think that's what's really happening, that we're getting a little more financially motivated to want to take this route. There's a lot of stories out there about some of the money that's actually been used. It's for, as far as the taxes that were collected in different states. And it's astronomical. It's a lot of money that these states are collecting from cannabis. And when it's federally legalized, I think they're hoping that it'll make a dent on some of the impact of some of these negative things that are happening in the economy. So because of that, I think we're going to be moving a lot quicker. I think it's going to throw a whole wrench if it happens like overnight. For sure. It's just, once it's federally legalized, a lot of different players are going to want to join in on the party. And I mean, they're already like planning on it. It's just that when they're going to pull the trigger, and a lot of them just don't want to take the risk when it's not 100% sure that it's going to be federally legalized. But once it is, it's going to be the Wild West again, for sure. Acquisitions of all these smaller companies, big players coming in. Just I can see a lot of cannabis connoisseurs probably getting upset with a big player stepping in, but then you're going to see probably a lot more people who are not cannabis consumers start dabbling with it, seeing the medicinal benefits, the benefits for just stress and things like that. I think you'll have a lot more people that'll go into that. But a lot of these things the stories that we're reading is a lot about okay, now that it's legal, we need to put limits on it, which is interesting because alcohol industry, cigarettes, yeah, we have all these warning labels and things like that. There's no legal limit as far as what you can impose on people, which so
Right.
it makes it a different in a category it's in its own. Which, if it's federally legalized, I mean, will they still try to impose limits and things like that? I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, it's all over the place right now. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
look
Yeah.
at the limits that are imposing. I mean, Alabama, right? That was one of the stories we're going to be taking a look
Mhm.
at. It's you have to show a negative pregnancy test in order to get medical marijuana or something like that. It's like, well, that's weird. Any pregnant woman can buy alcohol if she wants to and ruin somebody's life, besides her own. So, there's things like that. There's the fact that basically there's no real way to judge limits, actual limits in things, right? As far as a pullover, and if you don't catch that person smoking while driving, basically, it's going to be pretty freaking tough to prove that they were high at that moment based upon current standards and that kind of thing. And that's why the DEA is working on the public safety stuff and has opened up from Mississippi being the only place that they get cannabis from, since that was, basically just moldy hemp, according to them. You don't need much more than 3% to be active. So they're getting up with the times. They're working with dispensary cannabis. They're working with things that people are smoking now, and really, yeah, that is what I thought was holding personally. What I thought was holding up a lot of the federal stuff was really not having the things in place for public safety and not having a consensus yet amongst the states for what is the way to regulate it, right? And I know. Hey, if you look at alcohol, um, I know what the alcohol limits are in California, but I do believe there are states that vary from state to state. I don't think it's a federal legal limit, is it?
I mean, aside from driving, yeah. I mean, there's not really. I
All
don't
right.
think there's.
Well, I mean, like 0.08, is that universal for all
Oh,
states being?
I don't know if it's across every state. I think it's state by state.
I think there's like 0.04, 0.06. I,
Mhm.
I think there's different varying levels when it comes to that. So really, it's just basically the feds have to come up with a guideline and the states have to enact it. And the the holdup is the feds are year one of studies. Year one of studies.
Yeah,
So
and that's what I think that that bill that just passed, where they're going to have a lot more studies that involve with cannabis, is going to help. I mean, especially like just with the story of taking a pregnancy test. I mean, I can see if there's like a lot of solid studies that show that there's some detrimental harm to a child if there's any cannabis consumption during pregnancy and things like that. But the fact is, I don't think there's enough studies that are done
right.
on things like that. I mean, there are drugs and things like that out there right now that you can't take when you're pregnant. I remember, you know, I think there's one like a for your skin, like Accutane or something like that, that creates like alien head babies if you get pregnant. So like they literally make it so you have to, if you're taking that, you have to take a pregnancy test. So there's stuff like that out there. But that's because they have solid proof that you're going to have some sort of crazy thing happen to you if you get pregnant. So it's just everything is kind of up in the air. Nobody really knows. And it's like what you said is there's just not enough testing. People don't know 100% what the benefits are. They don't know what the risks are because not enough money has been poured towards it to figure it out. So I think, hopefully this will be the first step. And then once there's more understanding, then there's more freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, and in regards to Michael Payton Sr., I've seen him comment a couple of times, but as he's relating cannabis to the tobacco industry, you can grow all the tobacco you want. You got to have the base to sell it, and I'm sure if you smoke cigarettes, you wouldn't want to smoke it straight off the stock. Ultimately, again, that's a free market, free enterprise capitalism here in the U.S. Right? That's what does happen to cannabis in the end. Is if it's a free market for it, it's going to be much akin to alcohol or cannabis, or excuse me, tobacco, or for that market, for that reason, any other market, energy drinks, right? The energy drink boom, that kind of stuff. You're going to have a bunch of woohoo money, coming in off of the Wall Street and coming in off of places that were holding back for so long, coming in and just flooding the market, just like happened in let's call it 2006, 2007 with energy drinks, right? you had Red Bull, then you had a couple extras, then Monster hit the scene, and then boom, everything from energy drinks called cocaine to, I can't even think, Zip Fizz and all that kind of stuff and everything in between. Hey, we had a hat in the ring at one point too, did pretty right, but no one wanted a natural and organic energy drink at that point with kombucha in it. No one knew how to pronounce kombucha, but that's what's going to happen as federal legalization happens. It's going to become an industry that becomes more and more adopted on a regular basis by the public. One of the things I think that happens with federal legalization is, and it doesn't have to do with here right now, but I think worldview changes. Right, we've been accused of and being held accountable for being the country that basically views cannabis the way it does, and has different people viewing it the same way, and excludes it from different things such as WADA and the Olympic stuff and all that. So I think we legalize here, and it sets off of a chain of events bigger than just here in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. How about this other story that we're talking about? Just wanted to bring it up because it's kind of related about the limitations that are put on by South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of that's kind of the same scenario, but just on a state level. That they legalized it, and now that it's legal, they're trying to put some structure around it to make sure that it stays that way. Do you take it to be something like that, or do you take it to just be more suppression?
I'm just trying to look at. So would you repeat the question? Sorry, I was trying to look up the story real quick.
Yeah, it was just a story of Kristi Noems. They basically legalized like medicinal and things like that, and then now there's new proposals to amend what they agreed upon to limit the amount like they're giving to people in nursing homes, limit the amount that you can grow. Well, there looks like they're extending who can prescribe it and things like that, but it's mostly to structure, put a more solid foundation on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm thinking do you think this is going to be kind of how it will happen federally? Once it's legalized, then they're going to come and amend things and put a bunch of restrictions on it. It's like, okay, now it's legal now, and then blah 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 blah. Yeah, here you got limited this, limit that, limit that. I mean, but people might look at that as a negative, but that's what I'm thinking in this perspective, that potentially it's a positive. Putting some limitation on it to at least set some sort of standard. I don't know what your take is on it.
To me, it seems like an overregulated play there. It seems like them trying to make it known that they really don't want it there. And if I'm not mistaken, Kristi Noems is the one who said, she's the one that said nobody, if I'm not mistaken, she said, nobody I know has ever gotten smarter from smoking weed. Isn't that her?
I believe so.
When it comes down to outright recreational legalization, she's not for it. So this is overregulation, in my opinion, of that market. And when it comes down to what happens with legalization, it really boils down to how that happens, right? If legalization happens and states still proceed with medical only laws, well, then overregulation is probably going to happen in those states, and they're going to remain medical only, and then opt out of the recreational aspect of it. They maybe not have so many penalties or that kind of thing, but realistically, if states don't allow for medical cannabis here soon, people who require it are going to move to other states. They're going to have exodus. They're going to have people move to states where you can, because there's more states than not now. So they're going to have to get with the times in some regard. But states like South Dakota, where Kristi Noems is known for not being a proponent of the cannabis industry, she's getting over there and she's basically just making it so that it's a finer amount of people that can smoke without getting in trouble, which means they probably have heftier fines and things that they can generate revenue off of on the other side.
Gotcha. Now, so the MORE Act coming, I guess, in about a week, it's going to be back on the floor. It hasn't been on the floor for a while. It's been what is it? Probably a year and a half or so since the last time it was.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think? What's your take on what's going to happen on this?
So it's let's see. Oh, second time in history next week. So the U.S.
Yes.
House of Representatives plans, and it's the second time. What do I think is going to come of it? When it boils down to what we think the majority wants right now, and what why am I forgetting? Right now, I'm seeing Don Young's name, but the guy that we always have with the glasses on, the majority leader, Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's behind this and wants to get this done first, and really, this is where you have the chance for people like I know we were just talking about Frosty Tips over here had brought up something to do with the fact that people can't the people who have felonies and that kind of stuff and have had stuff in the past can't get licenses and have a unfair barrier of entry to the market. And this is something that if this passes first before safe banking passes, it's a more than likely situation. It gives more people who were affected by the atrocities of cannabis prohibition a chance to get involved with it before what we were talking about before. The money monsters coming in and taking over the industry. So really, as the Democratic Party sees it, this is the way to get out in front of big money coming in and stomping over the people who basically have been treated unfairly because of it. I think it has a good chance of passing. I'm not sure if it has a chance of passing now. The agendas are here, and realistically, the different parties and the people who are running for the different positions in state right now are going to hold fast to their parties' positions on it. Whether they believe in it or not, they're going to do what's best politically for that. And it's always been a close thing. And then last time it didn't make it. So I think it's going to happen before safe banking. Maybe not. Actually, I might actually take back on that. I think the proper, I'll rephrase that. I think the proper order is to have it happen before safe banking, but we'll see who really agrees with the Democratic Party, Chuck Schumer, and this. The problem is that Chuck's legalization bid also has a 25% tax on it, and that is not cool. So that throws a little bit of a skew to some of the things that are coming to the table. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, like we were saying before, I think money is a big motivator for them to move forward, and that big, the tax number just kind of proves that it's all for trying to generate revenue for the state. I'm just thinking also because just like any other thing that happens in government, there's always some sort of influence from big groups, and pharmaceutical, even alcohol, tobacco, huge. These are huge industries. They all will see some sort of decline in revenue if this gets passed. Absolutely, there's some things that are definitely can be replaced with cannabis in the pharmaceutical realm. We know for a fact that there's tobacco and alcohol companies that are invested in finding analytics on the cannabis side because they want to see how much it's affecting their own business, in which they are seeing effects in certain areas. They're now you can buy some more cannabis. You don't need to buy so much alcohol, things like that. So it's interesting to see if how much of it is some of these, because that's a lot of money when you're talking about a lot of backing. When you talk about that many industries, that many big multi-billion-dollar industries that are going to get hit. If you believe in the fact that it's always about the money, which it's kind of historically has seemed to be that way. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of uphill battle, I think. Um, but I think that's what they're weighing is like, hey, the money from these companies or the money that we could get from taxpayers. The only way it
Right.
can be beneficial is if we tax enough that we're going to see something out of it. And then, so it's again, it's weighing those two things. So unfortunately, I don't see a legalization with a very low tax rate to make it more accessible to everybody is a thing, because they're going to be hurting a lot of people that have been historically funding a lot of things,
Right.
by going this route. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, ultimately, we know that's where the traction came for the states that legalized it recreationally as well. We've said it before: coffers filling coffers, right? It's basically, like you said, the tax revenues generated from it. Um, yeah, you bring that up, the taxes and the money and that kind of thing. It's a tough position to rationalize how they want to change from getting the money from big pharma, as well as just straight up Gestapo style taking from the industry people with the 280E clause, right? Everyone here has to pay it. There are no deductions. There's no anything else. Um, and yeah, I mean, really, it's what is their incentive, right? They're collecting tax money. Anyone who's doing a legal business here in California, or licensed business anywhere else, they're having to succumb to taxes in one shape or another, whether they're getting around things, whether they have great attorneys, but there's certain write-offs and there's certain clear write-offs and certain things you can't write off. In 280E, it's mostly you can't write off. So they're collecting taxes already, uh, from from the mouth of the people providing the industry, rather than the retail. Well, they're getting it both ways, because essentially the brands are getting it from retail. They're getting it from the people. So where's the incentive for them to legalize?
yeah,
Where
and
is the incentive? Yeah.
that's the tough part. I mean, like, in any other scenario, like you see, like, like companies leaving California, for tax reasons and things like that. It's like, hey, I can run my business here. You're not gonna help me out. Your taxation and stuff is hurting my business, so I'm gonna move into a different state. With cannabis, since it's the legalization, they don't have an option to just like move to another state. So you're
Right.
stuck there. And it's one of those things where, like, why would the government even care if cannabis companies struggle? Because it's not, the demand is created by the consumer. The
Right.
consumers are basically say, hey, if you don't make it, I'll just buy it somewhere else. Or if it's not, they're not, like, it's not like Tesla, where they're only buying one brand and it has to be that one brand. It's they'll if somebody stops making a certain type of pre-roll, they can, and they could just go to the next one. So
Right.
it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're collecting taxes from everybody, and since there's nowhere to go, and it's literally like you said, it's like literally it's like mafia style. Like you're basically stuck in this situation, and it's like, why would they care? The
Right.
consumers will demand the product. So there will always be new companies popping up paying taxes. They'll go out of business. Another new company pops up, pays taxes, go out of business, and it'll just be a vicious cycle if they keep it up this way. But is there some sort of incentive for them to want to have some companies actually succeed and do well and grow, or are they just looking at it as just taking just straight off the top their percentage?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And with different issues, like the stage is trying to, donkey limit referred to it over here in our YouTube comments, about the stage is trying to get the black market prices, because the black market prices are higher than the legal prices, and realistically they're able to, again, just like we were talking about, derive revenue either which way. And again, a testament to what we were saying earlier, Michael Payton Sr. up there has, uh, the three industries he thinks are holding the lobby at Washington D.C., which is alcohol, tobacco, and textiles. And really on that level, textiles. I mean, it's cannabis that's going to disrupt that industry first. And I was setting the motion with federal legalization surrounding the Hemp Bill Act. And that's really what they're trying to stave off right now, is that type of movement with the cannabis plant itself. Um, but yeah, it's
That's a crazy thing about cannabis. It has so many applications. There's so many industries that it's going to touch for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, especially when you start pulling in the hemp market and things like that. It's crazy how many things we can make out of the plant. Um, and it kind of is no wonder it's been always suppressed because there's so many companies, established companies that's kind of the foundation of this country that are going to be affected, deeply
absolutely.
with some of this stuff. Um,
But I think the recent cry has been that a lot of the fabric and the makeup of this company, some of it country and whatnot, was antiquated and needed to be updated anyway. I think it's time for people to get with the times in this particular regard as well. So yeah, all the way around, it's yes, we're being manipulated, we're being stifled, and it's because the old doesn't want to give way to the new, right?
well, it comes down to media. Before the internet, everything was controlled. The media was controlled, like the narrative was controlled. So you could
Right,
say one thing. Now everybody could voice their opinion and be heard.
right.
So there's no suppressing it. Before there could be like, did you just throw one negative story and say like, hey, it's bad for you, it's going to kill you. That's the end of it. That's kind of what happened with a lot of things in the past. You just thought it was bad for you and then you just got rid of it. A lot of campaigns for a lot of different products, but you can't do that anymore. People will
Yeah,
people will post the truth and it'll be shared all over the place and people can see it. So yeah, I think no matter what, just people voicing their opinion, and the amount of people that are voicing their opinion, they have no choice but to listen and do something about it.
yeah, it's absolutely. And the part about it that um is how it's getting through is everyone's behind the medical aspect of it, right? Is human nature says, you know what, if someone can feel better on a day-to-day basis, let them feel better. And that's where the momentum came from, but realistically handed off to politicians, and it's all about the money. So this is how it's happening in the US. It's medical before recreational. And we're so far past that since where California legalized it, medically, and then did this. People should be just jumping in with a recreational plan, and then allowing for medical people to benefit from the legal market, meaning less or no taxes, more availability, less limits, that kind of thing being available to them. And really, otherwise, it's just posturing, and it's the methodical nature of politics. It's like, well, if I do this first, then I have to do this next, and as long as what I'm doing is popular, I get to stay in office for the next however many terms. And yeah, it's got to break this roller coaster that we've been on concerning this. But cannabis is just one element, right, of it. It's not like we're the only industry or the only thing affected by the old guard, if you will,
For sure.
or the old way of thinking. I'm not even talking about age-wise people. It's just it's the antiquated politics, right?
Exactly.
But a lot of old people hold those. Shit, I got gray in my beard. I don't know what I'm talking about, who I'm talking about, I guess. But yeah, so that's it. Is a lot of things moving and shaking. You know, uh, a lot of momentum, but we're still all waiting to see. I left my crystal ball at home today, so we're all still waiting to see what happens next week. Right? Is it posture, or is it purposeful? Right? Are we going to get it through again, or is it just more politics like we're used to? And hopefully we get some answers next week. Regardless of what those answers are, we're going to be here to talk about them. That's for sure.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure John Bond's going to be yeah, join the conversation again, but I would love to have you back on with us, Jason, again if you can make the time. I know you're a busy guy holding all the app stuff together and all our technical side of things together. But yeah, it's I'm sure we're going to have a lot to discuss, and the weekend after when Steve Hawkins comes back on, we'll probably be a little bit further into that. So it'll be interesting to see how the next week, 2 weeks unfolds, and how the markets react, because really, a lot of the people who are investing in Canada and a lot of the market cap that's going into Canada is based upon acquisitions that are happening here in the US. So all this market is based upon forward-looking statements, if you will, if you're talking about investment, and that kind of thing, of which we are not handing out investment advice, opposite of the fact that I'm not investing in Canada right now. But the stocks are going crazy, and there's a lot of pump right now, and that's going crazy. So yeah, we'll see how it goes next week. I want to thank everybody who joined us via our app as well, and via the comments here on YouTube. We got a lot of stuff changing around here. We've got some new shows coming up. We're going to be doing some new formats concerning some of our old shows. We're going to be updating some of the new podcasts, and we've got some new content being created here on scene as we do this build out here around the shop. We're going to be extending our Wi-Fi. We run out of Wi-Fi when we try to go downstairs. We tried to walk through the building and walk with the live, but it gets granular and it gets really flickery. So we didn't take you on that ride yet, but soon we will be able to upload a video of what's going on here and kind of show you how it all started here at TRICHOMES headquarters, what's going to be going on, some new neighbors we're getting, and a lot more reviews coming too. We're going to be working with some brands, not so much working directly with the brands, but grabbing brands from the dispensary and working with some of our creators to do some reviews and get you guys some honest feedback about what they think of these products. So again, everybody, thanks a lot for being in the comments. Thanks for being a part of our Friday. And Jason, what do you got? You got anything else?
No, I think yeah, we're doing a lot to the app, trying to make it better, more interactive, more fun, more informative. Cannabis is a small industry, but it's the most gigantic industry when you think about it. It has so many applications to it. So we're trying to make something for everybody in the app. So come check it out. Find the invite link. Jared, you could probably post another one in this live today. And yeah, we'll see you in the app.
Yeah, look for the link here. We're gonna close out the comments here, but it'll also be in the description as we leave here and cut this live off. So yeah, that's it, Jason. Thanks for reminding everybody about that, and have a great weekend.